Hey everyone, this video will focus on the importance of peer review and include some practical strategies that you can use both while peer reviewing in this class and also when you get into your professional workplace. So peer review, no matter what context you're in, is a central part of the writing process and should always be a central part of the writing process. Your experiences with peer review in a college environment are probably a little bit different than what you will experience when you get into a professional working environment, but I guarantee you will be doing peer review of coworkers, of subordinates, of other people's writing, no matter what workplace professional context you go into. And it can be valuable even when you don't necessarily agree with or appreciate every comment that you receive from the person who is peer reviewing your work. So a peer review partner is someone who represents a potential audience. And this is really important because you are always going to have an audience for any kind of writing that you do. And if you allow someone to read your piece of writing before it goes to your actual intended audience, you get an opportunity to get some feedback from a potential audience. So anything confusing or unclear or misunderstood by your peer reviewer represents the potential that your real audience may be confused by or misunderstand your message in some way. For instance, I have a friend who works in the office of the vice president for research here at Penn State, and she needed to write a report for President Barron. It ended up being this long 6-page report that detailed all of this information that she felt like he needed to read. She gave drafts to 5 other people in her office. 4 of them said, "This is great, this is fantastic, this is a really good draft, President Barron will love it." The last one looked at it and said, "You don't get to the main point until you get to page 2. What if he doesn't read that far?" And this is a problem. This one person thought of how the intended audience might actually read this particular piece of writing and found a really key problem with it, especially when you're talking about someone like President Barron, who gets probably so many pieces of paper across his desk that he needs to read through that he might not get as far as you need him to understand the main point of what was trying to be said. So those 5 people represented potential audiences, and one of them was able to come up with a problem that she was then able to fix before sending the draft along. So the quality of your writing will always be judged by your audience, and peer review gives you a chance to practice writing for that judgment before it actually matters and before it counts. In addition, your role as a peer reviewer, when you are peer reviewing someone else's work, is that of a reader and a helper, not necessarily a judge or an evaluator. When you get into the workplace, you will probably have a coworker that comes to you and says, "Hey, can you take a look at this piece for me? Just give me some feedback." You might get it via email. You probably will get it via email. And the way that we are going to perform peer review in this class will give you the opportunity to practice how you can do that well. So your main goal is to help the author of the material, help your partner. I am not asking you to evaluate these the same way that I will. You are not me. You are not a person who is actually passing judgment or evaluating this piece of writing. However, you can try to put yourself in the main audience's shoes and say, okay, if I was this intended audience, this is how I would potentially read this piece of writing. Also, by evaluating someone else, it can give you a better sense of the criteria that I use for each particular assignment, and can help you think more critically about, okay, if my partner has done something this way, maybe I missed something because I did it a little bit differently. This is also not about answering questions on a checklist. I am going to give you a worksheet for each peer review that you do, but peer review is not just going through that list and saying, oh, I did this, check, I did this, check. No, your goal is to help. It's to aid your partner with their writing. You want to identify problems, offer some praise, let them know what they've done well, and then offer suggestions for improvement, not slam them and tell them everything they did wrong. So how do you read critically? Take a minute and pause this video, and I want you to read through the job application packet peer review worksheet. There's a link right below the video. Take a minute to read through that real quick, and then come back and listen to the rest of this video. Okay, hopefully you had a minute to read through the full peer review worksheet. I'd like you to pay attention to the fact that the questions on the worksheet ask you to identify things and offer suggestions, not to criticize. There's a huge focus on positive things that you can identify, as well as finding areas for improvement and offering suggestions for that improvement. So this is not just this could use improvement. It's this could use improvement and here's how you could potentially do that. Don't just say this is wrong, say, okay, this isn't the best, here's how you could fix it, okay? Offer some suggestions in addition to identifying these areas for improvement. Also, please note that I ask you to only comment on blatantly obvious or persistent grammar issues. We have spell checker and grammar checkers for a reason, and the author is responsible for their own careful revisions when it comes to grammar and spelling and typos and things like that. But if you see persistent grammatical issues or persistent spelling errors, that's a great place to kind of make a comment about it because it might be something that they might not catch on their own. It's something that they've never learned or that they regularly forget about. So try to only comment on those big ones. I don't want you spending a ton of time copy editing, essentially, because that takes away from you being able to comment on the actual ideas of the writing, which is what's more important here. So these worksheets are meant to give you an idea of possibilities for peer review, how you could potentially respond to a fellow coworker when you get into a business setting. So hopefully this unit and the peer reviews that you complete this semester will help you learn to go forth into the workplace and take these lessons with you into your professional lives.